It's Erskine Overnight, and we're happy to be with you on this Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend, and nobody better to have than Robert Chapman, publisher of the International Forecaster, the newsletter that examines world economic conditions, and Lord, have we got things changing hourly. Not even daily, but hourly. Thank goodness he publishes twice a week, 2 times a week, the major conditions and things that you will not hear anywhere else. You've got to listen to Robert Chapman on this program, other programs, and you've got to subscribe to the International Forecaster. Otherwise, you're snoozing and you're losing. Mr. Chapman presents the future headlines today. He presents what's going on, and you're going to hear about it tomorrow, next week, 2-3 months down the road. I mean, it's incredible. You're not going to get that on CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, or any of the managed services. Information that can help you make informed financial decisions. And it's always a pleasure having Robert Chapman with us. Wall Street Journal today, world markets tumble. Where are the green shoots they're talking about, Mr. Chapman?
Where are the great what?
The green shoots. They're talking about green shoots.
Oh, that's nothing but poison ivy.
We've got things coming up. You got that right.
Yeah, unfortunately. They dug themselves a nice big hole and they can't get out of it, and it's been 22 months now, and the market's starting to go back down again to test 6,600 on the Dow, which we predicted it would. And after that, it'll probably go lower. The dollar's getting pounded. We call the top on the dollar at 89.50 on the USDX, and now it's trading close to 80 to 81. And that's quite a drop very quickly. But, of course, it went up very quickly based upon people getting out of the carry trades as well as deleveraging because of redemptions in mostly hedge funds. So the dollar really should have never gone up the way it did, but it did. And so now we're dealing with it. And the dollar's coming down now because of the inactivity in that deleveraging or relatively far little than what we saw over the past year. But the real problem here is not only the $14.8 trillion of Treasury and the Fed are going to feed into the marketplace, but also the FOMC, which is the Federal Open Market Committee, which is representatives of the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks. They want to continue to go in the same direction, and it looks like they are going to continue to allow the Fed to increase the amount of agency. Agency is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, bonds, and MBS, which is mortgage bond securities, and also treasuries. And that total amount, which they're going to be spending before the year is out, is $1.75 trillion. And so you got to add that on to the $13.8 trillion. I mean, I know the figures sound wildly absurd, but these are the real facts. And they're going to continue to ease and monetize indefinitely. And, of course, the market is very unhappy about it. That's good reason for the dollar to come down. And so that's where that's all headed. We also have legislation, which I've been on a lot of programs here in the last few weeks talking about on Fox, ABC, NBC, and many talk programs throughout the nation, and that is in regard to the audit of the Federal Reserve. Ron Paul has a bill, H.R. 1207, and it's called the Federal Reserve Transparency Act of 2009, and they have 159 co-sponsors, and they only need about 220 to pass this thing. And so if you could, contact every congressman and tell them that you want H.R. 1207 taken out of committee and passed on the floor. That's the Federal Reserve Transparency Act. It's the most important piece of legislation in the past 100 years, or since the Fed was formed 96 years ago in 1913, the same year that they gave us the federal income tax. And if we can get that accomplished,
all it is HR 12
around, albeit a very slim chance. And you also have to get Congress to put up tariffs on goods and services coming into the country. And that'll stop the drain of jobs to India, China, Mexico, and all points outside the United States under free trade, globalization, offshoring, and outsourcing. It's killing us, and we can't put up with it any longer.
HR 1207, Federal Reserve Transparency Act, by Ron Paul. Tell your Congress critters to vote for it. Get it out of committee. H.R. 1207. All it calls for, very simply, is an auditing of the Federal Reserve. And what a difference that will make. The Transparency, Federal Reserve Transparency Act, H.R. 1207, sponsored by Ron Paul, 159 co-sponsors. Why would they argue about a Transparency Act? I mean, all they want to do is audit the Federal Reserve. No problem. Now, you mentioned that if the stock market hits 6,600, and it's heading south quickly, if it hits 6,600, pension plans will be in real trouble. And you're looking for the Dow to go down to 3,800 to 4,200. Now, when it comes to pension plans, the pension organization that takes care of a lot of the pension plans is the PBGC. They had $35 billion deficit the first half of 2009 from $10.7 billion deficit the end of fiscal 2008. $33.5 billion. The man who was in charge, Charles Millard, former director of the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, invoked his constitutional right to self-incrimination after being subpoenaed to testify at a Senate Aging Committee hearing. He refused today, Wednesday, at the Senate hearing, examining allegations that he had improper contacts with Wall Street firms. Improper contact. He contacted Goldman Sachs. He contacted BlackRock. He contacted a lot of outfits. As a matter of fact, they think a lot of those bids that he did were absolutely rigged. This is criminal. Let's talk about that when we get back. The pensions and what's happening to our pensions in America. Do we have pensions left? And how can you refuse as a government employee to testify before Congress? All this for Robert Chapman when we return on Erskine Overnight this Memorial Day weekend. With GM and Chrysler coming on board to this agency as they go under, $33.5 billion deficit for the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, and the former director refuses to testify. Mr. Chapman, this is what you've been saying all along, the arrogance of these people, the lack of accountability, how they're getting in bed with the enforcers and the government, and everybody's in bed together, and Goldman Sachs is essentially running the country. Any comments on this fellow?
Well, yes, they are. And as you've probably seen as well, there's a move to, in order to neutralize the problems with the SEC, they're talking about breaking it up and the Fed doing some of the things that they do and other agencies. And the Fed, under its act and the amendments to the act, they cannot do that, and it would be illegal. But the incestuous relationship between banking Wall Street and Washington is really coming to light, and it is dreadful. I've written about it for years, and the subscribers of the International Forecaster know all about it, but the rest of the world doesn't, and that's why I'm doing all these radio programs, and so people will understand what's being done to them and why we don't need the Fed and why we need tariffs. But the criminality is unbelievable. I spent 28 years on Wall Street. I owned my own firm for a number of years. And so I know what goes on, not on the investment end, but also on the trading end. So they've been getting away with what they want to get away with, and the borderline things that they continue to pull, borderline being between criminal and non-criminal, is unbelievable. And you're seeing that sort of thing when you don't get any testimony because someone engages their Fifth Amendment rights. Of course, it's his right, but as a public employee, it would, be something. If Erskine and I went up there and were being grilled for something, and we used the Fifth, you could understand it.